December 1943, America's war effort faced a critical challenge. Victory depended entirely on the nation's railroads. Every weapon and supply needed rail transport. Millions of tons moved daily across America's steel network. Captain Miller's team coordinated this massive operation. Allied forces in both theaters relied on their precision. The telegram arrived: strike imminent. In that moment, America's entire war strategy faced a devastating threat. "We cannot allow our supply lines to fail," declared General Patterson. "Not with our boys depending on us." Chicago's rail yards operated non-stop. Workers' exhausted faces told a story of sacrifice reaching its limits. Calloused hands maintained America's war machine. Safety concerns mounted as equipment deteriorated under relentless schedules. Foreman Donovan faced an impossible choice: meet urgent war demands while watching his men reach breaking point. In crowded break rooms, workers compared inadequate pay stubs while endless trains of war material passed outside. "Union meeting tonight," came the whisper. After years of patriotic sacrifice, railroad workers had reached their limit. The Union Hall filled with tired workers still in uniform. Years of frustration culminated in this crucial gathering. Each ballot represented more than a vote. It embodied dangerous conditions, endless hours, and inadequate compensation. Families waited anxiously. Striking meant no Christmas money, but continuing meant breaking men already at their limits. Strike. The unanimous vote was announced. Pride in solidarity mingled with anxiety about what would follow. The 30th of December, declared Union leader Flanagan, "If demands aren't met, America's trains will stop." The deadline was set. The strike notice reached the White House during morning briefings. Roosevelt's aides immediately recognized the national threat. Officials studied the telegram with growing alarm. Just 12 days remained before America's war machine could halt. Maps revealed critical supply routes that would fall silent. Each line represented shipments vital to Allied forces. Telephone operators connected urgent calls nationwide as the crisis rippled through military and transportation networks. The 18th of December, 1943, the beginning of a forgotten episode that would test America's ability to balance workers' rights and war. Roosevelt weighed impossible options. Military demanded uninterrupted supplies while labor advocated for workers' basic rights. The president examined laws alongside battlefield reports. His decision would impact both rail yards and distant battlefields. Military advisors warned of catastrophic supply disruptions. Labor representatives detailed conditions pushing workers to strike. 2 photographs on his desk: soldiers unloading supplies and exhausted railroad workers. Both groups awaited his decision. Roosevelt reached for his pen. Wartime emergency powers would be invoked to preserve America's critical transportation lifeline. Families gathered around radios nationwide as news spread. From farms to apartments, Americans absorbed the developing crisis. Union representatives explained clearly: after years of dangerous sacrifice, railroad workers had simply reached their limits. Children played with toy trains, while parents worried about real railroads that connected their nation during wartime. Headlines declared, "Rail strike threatens war effort," and Roosevelt considers emergency measures as tension mounted daily. Public opinion divided sharply, supporting workers' rights versus maintaining uninterrupted flow of vital war materials. The 27th of December, journalists packed the White House press room, awaiting an announcement that would shock the nation. The government is assuming control of all railroads effective immediately. Executive Order 9412 was unprecedented in scope. Camera flashes illuminated solemn officials as reporters documented this extraordinary seizure of America's private industry. Radio broadcasts interrupted regular programming. Americans learned their government had seized the railroads to prevent strikes. Snow fell as reporters filed stories. A pivotal moment unfolded against the backdrop of history's greatest conflict. Military personnel marched through Grand Central Station at dawn. America's government takeover of railroads had begun. The presidential order replaced holiday notices. Travelers read with surprise as military police secured the terminal. In control rooms, railroad experts worked with military officers now overseeing operations. The network couldn't falter. New priorities were established: red for military shipments, blue for essential civilian goods, yellow for approved travel. By mid-morning, America's railroads operated under complete military control, ensuring continuous support for the war effort. In Midwest rail junctions, military and civilian workers battled blizzards to keep war supplies moving without interruption. Military police checked credentials at checkpoints. Only authorized personnel could access America's critical transportation infrastructure. Veteran railroaders taught soldiers specialized skills. Years of railroad experience couldn't be replaced by military command alone. Field kitchens served hot meals to combine teams. Unexpected camaraderie developed between soldiers and civilian railroad workers. A conductor's watch passed to military hands symbolized the operation, government-controlled but reliant on railroad expertise. In a Washington hotel, government mediators sat between union representatives and railroad executives. The clock was ticking. Competing proposals filled the table. Worker safety demands faced financial limitation arguments as mediators sought compromise. While Washington slept, negotiators worked through the night. America's transportation future hung in balance around this table. Tempers flared as the deadline approached. Entrenched positions slowly yielded as the consequences of failure became clear. Dawn on the 29th of December, with just hours remaining before deadline, the first signs of compromise began taking shape. Military officers gained new respect watching veteran engineers navigate treacherous mountain routes carrying vital war cargo. Soldiers learned complex railroad telegraph systems that coordinated train movements across thousands of miles with precision. Women railroad workers demonstrated essential skills, coordinating with military personnel to maintain critical supply chains. Joint crews battled winter storms, clearing snow and repairing tracks damaged by harsh weather and constant wartime use. Improved safety measures implemented during government control revealed opportunities for lasting improvements to railroad operations. Secretary Frances Perkins personally led negotiations at 2 a.m. Her determined presence kept exhausted participants moving forward. Draft proposals covered every surface. Military data supported worker claims while acknowledging the war's relentless demands. While Washington slept, the fate of America's railroads, and potentially the Allied war effort, hung on carefully chosen words. The moment arrived, negotiators reached for pens as Perkins presented a compromise balancing worker needs with national security. Signatures sealed the agreement as dawnlight appeared. The night's work promised resolution to a crisis threatening America's war effort. Roosevelt prepared his radio address. The announcement would end government seizure, having successfully averted the rail strike. His speech acknowledged railroad workers' patriotism, while recognizing legitimate improvements needed in their working conditions. Technicians adjusted broadcast equipment as Roosevelt prepared to announce the resolution to millions of anxious Americans. Families nationwide gathered around radios, from farmhouses to factories, awaiting news of the railroad crisis resolution. Roosevelt praised American compromise during wartime. Government ownership would end, having achieved its essential purpose. Military officers formally returned control to railroad officials. The handover ceremony marked successful resolution of the crisis. Workers examined new contract terms, improved safety regulations, reasonable rest periods, and fair compensation for essential service. Maintenance crews removed military insignia from locomotives. The visual transformation signaled return to private enterprise. New scheduling protocols balanced wartime demands with human limitations, a lasting legacy of this brief government intervention. The terminal returned to normal operations. Families reunited beneath Christmas decorations. The crisis resolved just before holidays. Improved working conditions spread across America's rail network. New safety measures created a more effective transportation system. Military officials documented lessons learned, creating emergency protocols that would influence transportation security for generations. Roosevelt signed legislation formalizing both emergency powers and labor protections based on the railroad seizure experience. Historical markers now commemorate this crucial episode, when government seizure actually prevented disruption rather than causing it. For 12 days, America owned its railroads, demonstrating how democracy balanced competing priorities during its darkest hour.